How's it going, everybody? This is the Figuring Out Finance podcast, episode number 21. I'm your host, Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am back again with another book breakdown. This week's book of the week is going to be a really exciting one, and I'm trying to get back into reading one book a week, and this is the first one that I started with, so before we get into it, follow me on all the socials, so Instagram, TikTok at Figuring Out Finance, and then sign up for my weekly newsletter at figuringoutfinance.com to stay up to date on everything Figuring Out Finance, stay up to date on travel hacking, some new offers, and this new project that I have going on, which I'll be able to share all the details with very soon once I know they are finished. And then go take the survey so I can answer all your questions about money. So let's dive into it here. So this week's book of the week is the 12-week year. So if you haven't read this before, I was referred to this by listening to Brian Lubin, and on his podcast, he refers back to this book quite a bit. So I thought, well, might as well read it and check it out and see what it's all about. And it was definitely a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be just, how to track your habits, another self-improvement book. And it was really a lot different. And it had a very different perspective on accountability, which, I hadn't really thought of before, but through my two work experiences, it detailed it almost exactly how I thought about it. It just put it into words, because going through that struggle of the work, I was trying to figure out, why do I think differently, and why does this person not, understand how this is working? That probably didn't make a whole lot of sense, but why am I thinking of this in a different way, and why are these consequences not really triggering for me? So I'm about to break that down here in a minute. So getting into the book, it was a lot more about accountability. So what does accountability really mean? So if you're working a normal job, accountability, you've probably heard your boss talk about this and say, well, we need people to be more accountable, and then they list all the consequences for you not hitting your goals. So that's not real accountability, that's just consequences. So most of us think of holding someone accountable by having a punishment for not doing the job or reaching the goal. So that's not accountability. So like I was talking about my first job, my first boss straight out of college was new to all of this. And one of the things that when we were about to go on the road for work, she said to our team was that people are going to be held accountable this year. People are going to get blamed. That is not accountability. And when I was told that, I almost laughed, because I'm like, that makes zero sense. That means that person isn't going to be taking any of the responsibility for anything that happens. People are just going to be getting blamed whether they know the story or not. So getting into one of the book's quotes here is, successful people are accountable. So accountability is not about blaming yourself or punishing others. It is simply a stance in life in which people acknowledge their role in outcomes. Accountability is not concerned with fault, but rather what it takes to create better results. So let's break that down here, because I think that's such a powerful quote. So accountability is just a stance in life in which people acknowledge their role in the outcome. So let's take this example of trying to lose weight. So if you have a coach that you're working with and they're trying to teach you how to exercise and eat better, and they said, okay, well, we're going to hold each other accountable. So you're going to tell me how I'm eating, and you're just going to tell me how to eat. So that's the person they could check in on you, they could call you, but they can't make you eat the food. Or they can't make you exercise, and they can't make you eat the food. So how are they going to do that? They're going to probably make you exercise more as a punishment. So that's not accountability. Accountability would be you coming up with that goal of, hey, I want to lose more weight and I want to look better. I want to feel better, drink more water, whatever. Only you can hold yourself accountable to that. Other people can check in on you, see if you're reaching those goals, but it's up to you on whether you're actually going out of your way and serious about hitting those goals, and you're going to be able to hold yourself accountable because that's your role in the outcome. That it's not on anybody else but me. My trainer could tell me or text me 100 times in a day to say, hey, eat fruits and vegetables. I cannot talk today. But eat those better foods, and you might not do it. That's not on them, because you could get mad at them and say, hey, I'm not losing weight and it's your fault. You're not holding me accountable, when the holding yourself accountable is the only way to go about that. So you have to think of accountability not as consequences, it's ownership. You are owning the situation because only you can control your actions. That is the only thing where you can control other than your own thinking. So you need to be able to use failure as feedback. So being able to dive into something that didn't work out. Maybe that's a real estate deal. And just for example, my first one where I lost a couple $1,000s, it was mostly about not understanding the process. So I could have been mad at everybody in the world and say, man, real estate isn't investing for me. The loan officer didn't tell me about this. They didn't ask enough questions, when it was really on me that I didn't ask enough questions. And learning to ask the right questions for the next deal has probably saved me thousands of dollars. And that's the same thing I'm going through right now, talking to a lot of contractors. It's just a lot of feedback. Being able to ask them the right questions, they're asking me questions, I'm better able to answer their questions once I know the right answers and I've been through it a couple times. And that's just learning. So I'm using that failure and maybe that relationship that didn't work out, I'm using that failure as my feedback to get better. And this thinking shifts the mindset towards what can I do better, rather than how is this somebody's fault. So if you've been following along on the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, there's a lot of that. And it's how can I do this rather than how is this somebody's fault. And that kind of falls into the same category of what can I do better. And that's all you're thinking about. And once you read Extreme Ownership by I can't think of his name, but go read Extreme Ownership. And he touches on this topic all the way throughout the book, being able to find a reason that the outcome is somehow in your hands. No matter where you're at, you are able to ask that question. You are able to affect that outcome. And that's ownership. So the only thing you can control are your thinking and your actions. So you're thinking in your actions, whether that's something that you're putting into your body or that's something that you're reading and thinking about all the time. You need to be able to digest that, think about it, and be able to control that feeling and that thought. So getting down into the meat of the 12-week year, so it really breaks down what the 12-week year really means. So a lot of businesses and companies, they try to break out these quarterly or annual goals. And what the author really talks about in the book is how much crap that really is. Because you're setting these quarterly goals thinking, okay, well, if I don't hit it this quarter, I'll get it next quarter. Oh, once I'm getting closer to December, then I'll kick it in gear. And there's the stats he has in the book that's able to show that these people can kick it in gear, and what's driving that is not hitting the goal. So how can we flip all of that around and be able to do all of that in 12 weeks? And that is really the meat of the book, along with the accountability, because you're going to be setting these goals and you're going to be holding yourself accountable. So just keep that in mind as we keep going here. So one of the quotes in the book was that I really liked. It said, "The barrier standing between you and the life you are capable of living is a lack of Excuse me. Let me start over on that. It said the barrier standing between you and the life you are capable of living is a lack of consistent execution. So that's why creating these quarterly or annual goals is just kind of dumb, because you're putting all of that towards the end. Like, oh, okay, so I don't have to work hard for these 2 months and then I can just hit all my goals in the last part of the quarter. Or later in the year, where if somebody set yearly goals, you're going to be kicking it into high gear in November and December. So why are we pushing all that back? That's not going to help your business. That's just going to be surviving. So how are you going to be consistent? That's not consistent if you just try to go after all of your goals at the end of the year. So how do we get around that? So where's your motivation to work if all of your goals can be met in the last 2 to 3 months? That's where the personal accountability comes in, because it's not a knowledge problem on how to meet that goal. It's just an execution problem. And that's why you need to be able to develop certain routines and goals and just steps along the way to be able to hit that consistently. And once you're doing that routinely, you're going to be able to hit your goals routinely. So getting into the steps here, it's where do we start on this goal? It's like, all right, I'm in on the 12-week year. It makes sense. I understand the accountability part, but where do we start? You need to start with your deepest and darkest why. And what I mean by that is, what is your motivation? So the motivation is not just, I want to make more money to go on a vacation. Well, why do you want that vacation? I'm reading about that in Millionaire Success Habits, so that'll be book of the week coming up here soon. But what is your deepest and darkest why? So, because if you don't have a clear vision, then what are you working towards? Because you're just going to be sprinting in one direction, and if you're not sprinting to a specific point, you're just running in one direction. So, what is your compelling reason to accomplish your goals? So, that is the number one thing. So, for me, my why is, all right, well, I want to be able to invest in real estate and start a business so that I can not have to work a W-2 job. So why don't I want to work a W-2 job? That would be because I value my time. Why do I value my time? Because I feel very rushed and not present while I'm working on somebody else's dime. I don't have the time to do the things I want to do. Well, what are the things you really want to do? Well, it's going to be, I want to play golf a little bit more. I want to be able to enjoy traveling. I want to be with my girlfriend. I want to be able to travel and have the time to be able to slow down, be present, and be around the people I want to be with. So get into your whys and start asking yourself why, at least 7 times. So that's not in this book, but that's another one. But find your compelling reason to accomplish your goals. And on top of that, whether that's a personal life goal, athletic goal, but in business, your goals or your why for hitting your business objective are not the end in themselves, but they are the means to an end. So if your goal in business is to go on a lot more sales call, make more sales, and make more money, why are you making that much money? Are you trying to get into a better living situation and be able to retire so you have the time? That's interesting. That's your why, and that's your end. It's not just, I want to make more money. It's, what do you want to use that money for? Is it for a vacation? Is it to retire or to never to work again? That's where you need to start. You need to develop that very, very clear vision and ask yourself those really deep questions to be able to understand yourself and what you're working towards. So that's step 1, is developing that clear vision. And step 2 is starting to develop your scorecard to be able to track your habits. So let's stay on the sales topic here, and I'll give a little bit of my own example, but developing your scorecard. So what are some things, if you're in a sales position, that's going to be able to earn you more income to get towards your why? So that would be setting up different client meetings. So if you're only setting up 3 a week, make it your goal to set up 5, 1 each day. So how does that change is you're going to be holding yourself accountable to setting up those 5 meetings every single week for 12 weeks and see what happens. So you could have maybe 5 different goals, setting up 5 different meetings. You're going to be emailing maybe 10 to 15 dead clients that you haven't talked to in a while. That list could go on and on and on. So in my business, my goal was to be able to start growing my social media following. So what I've done in my 12-week year is that I want to be posting 3 podcasts a week. So that's why I'm recording this late on a Wednesday, because I almost missed it. So I'm going to be able to check this box and add to my weekly scorecard. And it's also to post on Instagram once a week and make not once a week, once a day, as well as post to TikTok. And then I'm able to use that TikTok and then post it on Instagram. So I knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. And I noticed that my followers weren't really changing, because I wanted to be able to have 100 followers on Instagram by the end of that 12 weeks. I'm like, all right, so this isn't growing, so I need to start being able to interact with people. So I added another goal in there about week 4 or 5. So I was at about 12 to 15 followers at that time. And I started saying, okay, well, I'm going to be following these people and I want to comment on 5 other people's posts and see what happens. So I'm commenting on 5 other people's posts every single day. And what do you know? My followers have jumped up about 10 to 12, which is like double for where I'm at right now. So imagining where that consistency is going to take me, I'm just very, very excited about. And posting the podcast, I've had a lot more listeners than I thought I would at this point. So my goal was 100 by the end of the 12 weeks, and we are a little over 160 right now. So putting that goal, changing up that goal to maybe 300 now. So why you're using that scorecard is measurement. So if you're not measuring it, then how do you know if you're getting better? That's why there's games and scores and stats. So the measurement is a feedback tool. So you need to be tracking it by the end of the week. So if you have these 5 goals that you set out in your sales, let's say you hit all of them, that would be 100%. Let's say you miss a couple, you're down near 80, not a bad week. But let's say you've only gone on like 1 sales call, you didn't email anybody back, you're playing games and not really reaching your goals, and you're down around the 40 to 50%. So that's where you need to be holding yourself accountable to hit your goals. And that's going to be step number 3. After you develop the steps to be able to reach that goal that goes towards your why, you develop the scorecard, and then the last step is to just be able to hold yourself accountable. And that is just acknowledging your role in that outcome. So you could blame it on anybody, the government, people just not wanting to buy. But if you're not willing to put in that work to hold yourself accountable to reaching those goals, then it's not anybody's fault but your own. And that's something that you can really take away from this podcast, is that the accountability is not about the consequences. So go read the book. I highly, highly, highly recommend this one. I got a lot more out of it than I thought I would. It was just one of those sneaky ones, but really, really good. I'm starting to read Millionaire Success Habits, and that just kind of builds on top of this. And so really, really interesting stuff here. And I'm going to, before I sign off today, go follow me on all the socials again. Keep checking out the website. Keep listening to the podcast. Let me know if there's any books you recommend if you're still listening. And I'm going to leave you with this quote that one of the last quotes of the book, where it says, "Most of us have 2 lives, the life we live and the life we are capable of. Never settle for anything less than you are capable of. So signing off on that, this was the book review of the 12-week year for episode number 21 of the Figuring It Out Finance podcast. We'll see you next time.